All rise.
The Kosovo Specialist Chambers is now in session.
Good morning. Madam Court Officer, can you please call the case?
Good morning, Your Honors. This is case KSC BC 2020-05, the Specialist Prosecutor versus Salih Mustafa.
Thank you, Madam Court Officer. First of all, I will call appearances. Please, Mr. Prosecutor, could you tell us who is present for the Specialist Prosecutor's Office?
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, Your Honors. The prosecution is represented today by Mr. Alex Whiting, Deputy Specialist Prosecutor, Silvia Dascoli, Associate Prosecutor for the SPO, Julie Mann, who is our case manager, and also Ryan Marr, who is the SPO intern, and my name is Cezary Michalczuk. I'm the SPO Prosecutor.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. Victims' Counsel, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Your Honors. My name is Marie-Pierre Barbeau. I'm here representing the victims' teams today, together with Victims' Counsel herself, Dr. Annie Poes. Thank you.
Thank you, Victims' Counsel. Defense Counsel, you have the floor.
Good morning, Your Honor. The defense is represented by myself, Julius von Bonnet, Mr. Betim Shala, my co-counsel, Mr. Fatmir Pelaik, investigator, and joining via remote is today Mr. Mustafa.
Thank you, Defense Counsel. Mr. Mustafa, you can hear everybody in the courtroom fine?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. And for the record, you are appearing today in front of trial panel 1, and the presiding judge is connected via a video link. Today, we will continue with the testimony of Mr. Humoli. However, before that, I need to address the following matter with the parties and the Victims' Counsel. The panel received an email from the SPO yesterday evening at 20:02, in which the SPO informed the panel, the defense and the Victims' Counsel, that it has updated its presentation queue for witness 4849 with a set of documents, and I quote the ERN number 104784 and then hyphen 104833, and it's in translation into English, and that it would make an oral request today for leave to use such documents during the remainder of the direct examination of Mr. Humoli. Before I give you the floor, Mr. Prosecutor, the panel notes that these documents were disclosed shortly prior to your email, notably at 13 minutes past 6 through package 113. In addition, the panel notes that the material dates back as far as 2015, with the majority of these social media posts and media articles dated between 2018 and 2021. And the panel would like to know why you discovered it and disclosed it only at this moment in time. What is the relevance of such material for the purposes of your direct examination? You have the floor, Mr. Prosecutor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. Yesterday, during the testimony of Mr. Fatmir Humoli, I believe we managed to highlight several discrepancies between his statements that he gave to the SPO, also to the defense, and in his statement that he gave yesterday before this court. And we decided, after the conclusion of yesterday's session, after we have assessed the entirety of the statement in view of other materials that we have in the case, that indeed we would like to assist the panel to assess the credibility of Mr. Fatmir Humoli, this witness. And therefore, we decided to disclose yesterday. I agree it was late, but at the first opportunity that we made that assessment that I have just mentioned, we decided to disclose everything, inform the parties about the material that we have. And we don't intend to tender this material into evidence. We would like to use it today with this witness, as I said, just to assess the credibility of this witness and to shed light on the entirety of his statement in view of these materials and the questions that we will pose today on the basis of those materials.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. Victims' Counsel, have you any observations to make in this respect?
No, we have no observations on this issue, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense Counsel, do you have any observations?
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, we do.
You have the floor.
First of all, the request that the prosecutor, the SPO, is making, as far as the defense is concerned, should be denied, should not be admitted. The material that is put into this disclosure 113 dates a very long time before the opening of the SPO case. The second part is that the material is completely unrelated to the accused. Then the material is unrelated to any of the charges. And the material is also unrelated to any factual issues of the indictment. So on top of that, there is no anything related to any of the circumstances of the indictment, and it is not even related to the testimony that the witness gave. On the 1st of February, by order of the panel, it was to be submitted on the 1st of February, the final list of exhibits. And to come up at this stage so late with a pile of documents that we can hardly even review, we do think that it is simply too late to admit it. We found, in addition to this, another observation that the SPO actually does not use any of the exculpatory material for the accused. When it comes to the dates, for example, the SPO does not use documents that are related to the events, even though they know very well that these dates that they claim, the prosecution is making a claim that there is discrepancies. It's a claim. It's not a fact. They believe it is without saying what actually is the actual discrepancy. And if the witness is actually stating about certain events, we notice that the SPO does not use the documentation that they have put into the case file themselves, while very much aware of the fact that this material exists, while very much aware that that events that take place are not only reported in the case file itself, but also in other open sources. And for example, the OSCE report that is listed in ERN number IT 05-87 period 1 P01029. And we do believe actually that if the SPO comes up with material, then it should balance its, especially regarding the position that the SPO has. And in this particular material, we find, as I said, no material that is related to the charges, the facts, the circumstances, the testimony. It is apparently only to characterize the witness whatsoever of documentation that dates from a very, very long back day ago. And whatever the opinion of people might be, that is outside of the scope of this trial. And therefore, We believe that this kind of documents that are entered at this very, very late stage should not be admitted to tendering as evidence or usage during this examination of the witness. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Thank you, Defense Counsel. Do we have an... Yes, I see the prosecutor standing. Mr. Prosecutor, you have the floor.
I would like to very briefly respond to the submission of my learned colleague. So, first of all, he said that this material is not related to the testimony of yesterday. It is. Yesterday, the witness testified himself that he respects this court. If Your Honors remember, we had an exchange about his strategy during the war to forget things, but at the same time, in one breath, he said that, but it does not deal with this court, which he respects. So that's why we would like to relate the materials that we disclosed yesterday to that part of the testimony. This is my first remark. The second remark is that we have all the obligation to assist the panel to assess the credibility of this witness and his bias, if any, in relation to this court and this case, and also any bias, if any, in relation to the accused in this case. Speaking about the material and the late disclosure, it was not the case that the SPO was simply holding this material forever. We just made, we were making searches just 2 days ago, actually, and we found things. And the moment we realized that there might be a potential bias and that his attitude toward this court might have influence on this case and his testimony, only then we decided to do it. So we are talking about the materials that we had in our possession just for a little bit more than a day, not as the defense claims. So when it comes to using the materials yesterday during our examination, the most pertinent material that we used were statements, prior statements of this witness, SPO statements, the statements of the defense. So this is the most pertinent stuff that we used yesterday. So when it comes to the opportunity of the defense to challenge this evidence, they could always ask questions in the cross-examination to the witness. They could clarify things. And this is the most proper way, the cross-examination by the defense, to check whether what we are saying is correct in the eyes of this witness. Of course, as we discussed yesterday, if need be, the defense will have the opportunity also to recall the witness during their defense case. So in sum, I believe that there are reasons for getting the leave from the honorable panel and use the materials that we disclosed yesterday in the remainder of the examination of this witness.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. Victims' Counsel, would you like to make an additional observation?
No, Your Honor. We won't.
Thank you. Defense Counsel, would you like to make an observation in addition to what the SPO has said?
Yes, Your Honor. The issue of whether the witness would be biased in whatever manner has nothing to do with the charges of the indictment. First of all, it is a presumption of the prosecution that the witness would be biased. In all fairness, the witness stated simply his testimony about his whereabouts, what he did, when he did that, where he did that, and so on. It has nothing to do with any opinion that might have been obsolete. It's not even we cannot even put it properly in context, and therefore I do not think that it would be of any use for the panel, nor for this trial, nor for the accused, or for anybody to get into a kind of a a debate about political issues that are completely unrelated, as I said, to the charges, to the indictment, to the facts of the case, to the whereabouts of the witness, and to what he has stated. So therefore, we believe that the motion or the request of the SPO, apart from the fact that it was simply too late, as dictated by the Rule 102, 1B, should be not admitted.
Thank you, Defense Counsel. If I see nobody standing anymore, so we will continue. I will continue with rendering an oral order on this request. The panel notes that disclosure of the requested material, as well as notice by the SPO of its intention to use such material with witness 4849, took place late in the evening on the day before resuming the testimony of this witness. This provided limited time for the defense to familiarize itself with the material and also derogated from the panel's guidance in paragraph 34 and 35 of the decision on the conduct of proceedings, which is filing 170. However, the panel considers that the SPO gathered such material yesterday evening in light of a need arising out during the testimony of witness 4849, which could not be foreseen prior to the start of its direct examination. The SPO has specified that it is for reasons of credibility. It is not necessary that this topic is strictly related to the charges of the accused. To the charges or the accused, apologies. The panel notes that the SPO does not need to use exculpatory material in this question. They only need to disclose it. However, in addition, the panel notes that the material is not of a technical or complex nature and is also limited in scope. The panel therefore authorizes the SPO to use such material during the remainder of its direct examination of witness 4849 and further decides that the defense, if it so wishes, because of the moment the documents were disclosed, will be given some additional time during the breaks in order to study such material and consult with Mr. Mustafa to prepare its cross-examination. This concludes the oral order. Now that we have gone through this preliminary matter, we will continue with the testimony of the witness. Madam Court Usher, could we please usher the witness into the courtroom? Mr. Humoli, good morning.
Good morning.
To the specialist chambers. You can hear us, you can hear me fine?
Yes, I hear you good.
Did you have time to rest?
Yes, I had sufficient time.
Remind you that you are still under oath to tell the truth. We will continue with your examination by the Specialist Prosecution Office. I will now give the floor to Mr. Prosecutor so he can continue. Mr. Prosecutor, please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Humodi. How are you?
Good morning, good.
Mr. Humodi, yesterday we were discussing a certain strategy that you had during the war about forgetting things, and continuing, you said that, however, this strategy of yours does not apply to this court and that you respect this court. Is that so?
Yes, correct.
Have you always had that opinion about this court, that you respect it?
In my opinion, this court was unjustly established, but I respect the decisions of Kosovo Assembly.
Did you ever publicly compare this court to Guantanamo prison?
I'm not sure, but it's probable that I did. Just as the American legislators called Guantanamo as unjust, so do I call this court. But there is a difference between respect and justice. If you allow me, I would like to elaborate it further, for the sake of the public and for the court.
So for now, I would like to quote a very brief part of one of your Facebook postings that you published on the 17th of November 2019. And for the record, I'm talking about the ERN number 104790. This is the precise page where we have it. And you said the following: after the war in Afghanistan, the United States has established the Guantanamo camp, where people who have committed terrorist acts and other serious crimes against humanity are kept prisoners, which has been deemed to be contrary to American legislation. Similarly, Kosovo has established a Guantanamo for the KLA, whose war has been supported by all democratic countries and the NATO. So, what did you mean by comparing this court to Guantanamo? Please explain.
It's correct that when the civilian population was being bombed, the NATO technology military force didn't distinguish between the civilian population and the SERB forces. So with that kind of technique and weapons, it's absurd that they couldn't distinguish it. It is correct that there were judgments or trials held in Pristina and in The Hague regarding the alleged crimes perpetrated by the KLA fighters who were tried and condemned in The Hague and in Pristina. Salih Mustafa's commander was tried and condemned in Pristina. So who had the right to pressure the assembly to set up such a court to make us talk among ourselves in different languages when this trial could have taken place in Pristina, as the case was with Remy, Rustem Mustafa, or Suleiman Selimi, another commander of the KLA, or the trial of superiors who have been tried and sentenced in Pristina. So politically speaking, how can you argue that such a court is correct? I have expressed my opinions to the public everywhere in the Assembly that this court was set up as a result of the pressure brought about by Serbia's friends to prevent Kosovo's development. Having such a court, no serious investment comes to Kosovo today because every investor that can invest in Kosovo, seeing that Kosovo is unable to try its own people, would hesitate to invest. So that is the political meaning that I gave to this opinion. And practically speaking, I think that it was very easy for such a court to be set up and operate in Pristina without any problem.
Oh, this court, Guantanamo, didn't you? So do you still claim that you respect this court?
I respect the institutions of Kosovo. And since it is these institutions that set up this court, despite the mistakes, I respect it.
Mr. Humoli, did you ever publicly call this court unfair and essentially racist?
I sent letters to deputies not to vote in favor of it, considering it unfair. And so, because in my opinion, this lowers the dignity of justice in Kosovo.
I would like to be very precise, and I would like to put to you your Facebook posting that you made, and it was not before the creation of this court, it is a recent one, from the 11th of July 2021, so last year. For the record, it's got the following ERN number, 104793. And in that Facebook posting, among some other things, you stated the following: an unfair, essentially racist court and human rights violator. This is what, regrettably, was voted in by our Assembly. So, in public, you still called it unfair and essentially racist. So do you still claim that you respect this court, this institution?
But I had to do that in order to respect this court. I think it's an injustice done to the witness, but we have to see how much injustice is going to be done to the accused, because we are facing an occupier that committed crimes that even today refuses to acknowledge these crimes, that stages various diplomatic attacks in the international arena, and I still respected it and spoke Serbo-Croatian with them in order to come here and show my respect for this court.
Mr. Humoli, and I would like to make it clear for the record that this posting that I have just quoted was long after the establishment of this court. It was last year. So you said that the court was racist before you traveled to this court. Can you explain how you respect a court that you say is unfair? Because you said that this court is unfair. So how do you respect the court, which is in your view unfair? That is my question.
This is my political approach to it. As a national liberation movement, since KFOR came to Kosovo, we considered the way it came as unjust. NATO strikes as unjust. The way it used these strikes. Had NATO wanted to assist us, it could have supplied us with weapons and munition. And of course, we would have protected the population and prevented it from being displaced from Kosovo. And such injustices have done always against Kosovo. But we have thought long term. We knew, as I said, KFOR representatives in my office in Pristina, I said, you are not in a neutral position, but you are pro-Serbs, because the resolution 1244 recognizes Yugoslavia. And I showed KFOR, ANMIG, and all the other institutions we are going to conquer them politically, and we did, and we declared our independence. And I trust international opinion and not political institutions. I believe in technical institutions that are free from political influence. But the way it was built is of this nature.
Answer my question, because you said a few minutes ago that you consider this institution unfair. However, you still have respect for it. So how can you respect the institution that you consider unfair?
By telling the truth in this institution. By doing so the way I know it, because as a matter of fact, we have conquered the Serbian army in Kosovo, we have conquered the international opinion, and I'm sure that telling the truth, we will always be triumphant. You have to understand, and the court has to understand, that for us, life after the war is, in Albania there is an expression that is something that we might not have had. So our life was put in the service of our people. That's the most important thing for us.
Did you ever publicly call this court a political institution that cannot guarantee a fair judgment?
Of course. Now that I am an MP in the Assembly, I have made efforts for the MPs to cancel this court, but I have not managed to find sufficient support from my colleague MPs. In my opinion, so this court should be turned into Kosovo, because I think that our institutions have their place in Kosovo. The Yugoslav state and Yugoslavia had all its own republics filled with politically imprisoned Albanians. Therefore, this is something that should be banned today, because otherwise the prisons of the world, of Europe, will be filled with Albanians. K4 has been in Kosovo, it keeps being in Kosovo. UNMIK was in Kosovo as well. Therefore, I can say that I think that if they say that there is no possibility for the trials to happen in Kosovo, that's an offense for the international community, and that is something that Yugoslavia has managed to say and do. So Yugoslavia has said that UNMIK and KFOR have managed to make justice and to have trials in Kosovo. So this is a consequence of the international community, of the talks that have been happening, and I think that this is the way for us. The truth is the way for us to say what the route will be in the future.
Pushing this court a bit later, but now, can you tell me how can you still claim that you respect this court when you say it's unfair, racist, and cannot render a fair judgment? Really, answer this question in a very,
Your Honor,
very brief manner.
Defense counsel, you have the floor.
I said it already.
it is the same question which has already been answered by the witness. So to repeat the question, I don't think will make the answer any different.
Mr. Prosecutor, the point the defense counsel is making, I was going to raise it also, because I heard, of course, that you made now an addition with a third point, but it's getting back to the same question. So if it's a step up, like we have seen before, you can proceed, but it seems somehow somewhat repetitive. So.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you for this reminder. I'll try not to repeat myself. However, my question, we of course asked already a few questions about the witness's attitude to this court, but my last question was about his public opinion that this court cannot deliver a fair judgment. And I didn't hear this answer, and I would kindly ask the witness to answer my questions. So my question was clearly this one. Did you call this court a political institution that cannot guarantee a fair judgment? So that was my issue. Did you say that? Is that your opinion?
This is a public statement of myself that this institution has been established due to the political pressure. When the Parliament of Kosovo voted, it did not vote for this one. And the result of the pressure was that within the day, the MPs were corrupt so that they could give the vote for the establishment of this institution. And given that this was the approach for the setup of the institution, it lacks political credibility. Now, the fact that it is in Europe, and I'm convinced of the fact that the European people, if they adhere to democracy and respect democracy, I think that my opinions were just, and this is why I've said what I've said about the international community, the European people, and it's not about the political decisions that have been taken under pressure or under the daily interests of certain parties.
Same thing several times, and we understand. But my question was...
Mr. Prosecutor, excuse me.
That's the same question.
Mr. Prosecutor, sorry that I interrupt you. I just want to say something to the witness. Mr. Humoli, the question is if you think that this court can give a fair judgment. Yeah? That is the question of Mr. Prosecutor. And I would like you to answer to that question.
I'm skeptical to this.
With your permission, I would like to read a press interview with Info Kus, the media outlet of Kosovo.
Please proceed.
Dated, thank you, Your Honor, dated the 14th of January, 2019. And this is what you said, and for the record, it is on the ERN 104-803 to 104-804. So this is what you said in that short interview to that Kosovo media outlet. This court has a political mission. Courts with political missions lack credibility, and no one can trust them. And because this is a political court, one can never expect a fair judgment. If there was justice, they would have not been taken to The Hague on those allegations in the first place. Do you still believe what you said in that interview today, that this court cannot render a fair judgment?
I told you before, from Pristina airport, the way on how this court has behaved towards ourselves, the Albanians, in itself, it shows that what I thought of it has become even more consolidated. However, it is our obligation to see what justice will tell us.
I'm interrupting you because please don't give any details about your travel arrangements before you did that. Oh, please don't do that. So you were talking about when you left Pristina, and you can continue to say whatever you think is necessary to say, but don't give details about your travel arrangements.
So, Mr. Humoli, so from your last answer, I believe that you still believe that this is the case, that this court cannot render a fair judgment. Is that so? It's a yes or no question, very simple.
We will have to see. Like I said before, I'm skeptical. And my skepticism is being consolidated by the way on how things are ran, how the questions are being asked to me.
Have you ever called for the abolition of this court? You mentioned something to that effect a few minutes ago. Could you tell the court, have you ever called for the abolishing of this institution?
I have asked for this institution not to be voted for, and the conditions have not yet been ripe for it to be abolished. In the first moment that those conditions will be there, this court will no longer be supported by the Assembly of Kosovo.
About you, if there was a vote in the Kosovo Assembly to abolish this court, would you vote for its abolishment?
Yes, I would.
Just, Your Honor, a short moment of consultation, if I may.
Please proceed.
Microphone, please.
Change the topic slightly. Mr. Humoli, do you consider yourself a friend of Salih Mustafa, the accused in this case?
All our co-fighters were our co-fighters. It was the war that joined us, and it was the war for justice. And anytime We talk about the war for justice. We are friends amongst one another. So if that the cause is not justice, then we can have separate ways. You have in the trial today, and if the allegations, the points in the accusations are going to be sustained, then he won't be my friend.
Can I quote a very short passage from Mr. Humoli's statement, Your Honor, in relation to this issue? Thank you.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I would like to refer you to your SPO statement, which is on pages 100954, TR, ET, Part 2. It's on page 21, lines 24 to 25, and then on page 22, line 1 to 6. This is what you said about the relationship between yourself and Salih Mustafa. The question of the prosecutor. I understand, okay, did you become friends at some point? Talking about Salih Mustafa. You said co-fighters are always friends. Friends, yes, until they follow the same path. I said, I understand. Do you have any relationship with Salih Mustafa after the war? Did you have any relationship after the war? And you said he was a member of the National Movement for the Liberation of Kosovo even after the war. From this short exchange, do you understand that for now, up to now, you still consider him a friend?
When the court decides, we will know the position of Salih Mustafa. Up until the court decides, Salih Mustafa is not guilty. So once the decision is taken, then I can judge their relationship. But up until the time when a decision is taken, he is my friend and he will continue being my friend. About the international community, Mr. Prosecutor, from 1999, from Rambouillet, and if you have followed the statements of the National Movement for the Liberation of Kosovo, we have always been different, and we have had points of difference in opinion with regards to the international community. So we have been of the opinion that without an armed fight and without an armed war, NATO could not intervene. But there was only one mistake for us, for the National Movement for the Liberation of Kosovo, that NATO should have intervened in other places as well, in Macedonia and other places, but it only intervened in the case of Kosovo. The National Movement for the Liberation of Kosovo back in 1993 has said it clearly that it's only the armed war that would oblige NATO to intervene in Kosovo.
To Humoli to answer my questions, if I may ask kindly about that. Mr. Humoli, did you ever post on Facebook anything in support of Salih Mustafa?
Of course, yes.
Post in relation to Salih Mustafa. On which occasions and what was it that you posted?
We trust that he is innocent. We do still believe that.
Did you post anything when Salih Mustafa was arrested?
I am not sure, but it's not a problem even if I have made any posting in my...
I would like to show you your Facebook postings The first one is dated 25th of September 2020, and another one is posted on the 28th of October 2020. On those postings, you depict Salih Mustafa at his court appearance. My question was, when you were making those postings of Salih Mustafa on your Facebook account, was it your way of showing your support to Salih Mustafa?
I am telling you that I support justice, and I believe that Salih Mustafa is not guilty. And if he has done any mistakes, those mistakes will have to be shown. If that is not the case, then we'll have to keep in the same way, because otherwise he wouldn't be a member of the National Movement for the Liberation of Kosovo.
And please answer my question again. From what you are saying, it seems that posting those postings on Facebook of Salih Mustafa was your expression of support for him, correct? Just say yes or no question.
I have supported him, and I will support him for as long as I consider him being innocent. And the court considers him, I believe, innocent up until he is proved guilty.
When you were making those postings, and we are saying about, for example, the posting depicting Salih Mustafa already before this court in 2020, were you at that time aware of what Mr. Mustafa was accused of?
Up until the indictment was made public, I had no idea what he was accused of.
Did you have at any point a chance to familiarize yourself with, in general terms, with the charges, even after having made those postings?
The charges were raised much later, and it depends on how you see it. It is not possible for the public to see in details what the charges in the indictment are. And for as long as there have been no details, it's difficult to know things in the cracks of themselves. So it's only the court and yourselves that know in details what the charges against him are.
Let me be clear, you didn't know the charges against him. Nevertheless, you made postings on Facebook in his support. So why did you decide to do that? You didn't know the charges. You don't know how serious it is. Nevertheless, you support him. Why?
We support for the fight and the kind of life that he has done. And we know that his fight was just, and his life was in the service of the cause of the country. It was not a war or a fight that he did for personal interests.
So again, my question, I would like to get this clear answer from you. I understand that if we support people, we know more or less why we support them, and you said, I didn't know the charges, nevertheless I supported him. So could you give me a clear answer? Did you support him blindly? Did you give him an in blanco check? Blank check? And if so, why?
We have supported him, and we keep supporting him because of the war that he has staged and because of the kind of life that he has run. And the war that he has been taken into, that's a just war, and that has been in the service of the Albanian people.
Mr. Humoli, how did you become the witness for the defense in this case? Did you yourself volunteer? Were you approached by somebody? Could you tell the court how did that happen that you are today here with us?
Today, I am here in answer to the invitation that you have forwarded to me. But when Salih Mustafa was arrested, I went and paid a visit in his family. I told his family that we are willing to testify for what we know about Salih Mustafa. Then the family communicated with the counsel. The counsel got in contact with myself. Then you took permission from the defense, at least what you told me is this. So you approached me to discuss about the matter, and I'm here in answer to the invitation that was extended to me by you.
You just said that, and I quote, and this is page 25 of today's provisional transcript line. Let's start from line 25, or even 24. When Salih Mustafa was arrested, I went and paid a visit in his family. I told his family that we are willing to testify for what we know about Salih Mustafa. So you approached his family when you did that, after the arrest. Can you please tell me, did you know already what the charges were or what the charges against him might be? You went there and offered your support, that you would testify in his favor.
My statement is very clear. I went to Salih Mustafa's family. Salih Mustafa has worked for Kosovo institutions after the war. He has collaborated with NATO and with the international organizations in the sector that he has been working in. Therefore, for me, it was a surprise that he was arrested. While Salih Mustafa has gone to Brussels to share his knowledge, to share his expertise. Therefore, in this moment in time, for every citizen, it has been a total surprise that he was arrested, let alone ourselves as co-fighters with him.
All the citizens might have known something, but it was you who went to the family of Salih Mustafa, offering yourself as a witness in his favor. You did not know the charges. So why did you think that you could be a defense witness?
Taking into account the way on how the court in The Hague is established and also the political approach of the court, we knew what the orientation of the court was from the very beginning. This is the reason why I have offered myself, and I would do that for every co-fighter, so that I could help the truth be revealed. Mr. Prosecutor, from 1999, I know from many people that there are international investigators that have sought information about myself, but they have found no evidence against myself, because otherwise I would have been in the position of Salih Mustafa myself today. Because, like I said, I've been against K4, UNMIG, and there have been some interest probably by certain people to put me aside. But my fight was just. And like I said, such arrests are political ones, and they are not arrests that are aimed at putting light to the truth. So about the political opinions of mine, I don't know whether those political opinions are of any use to the court. But if you want to verify the truth, I think that the truth is being said here before you, and that's something that I say everywhere. So what I have said about Salih Mustafa is true, and everything that I say is true. I don't bother myself on what others think and what the consequences would be afterwards. The only concern of mine is just telling the truth.
And I want to tell you again that as of 99, if you look at my political vocabulary, you won't find anything that contradicts what I'm saying today.
Mr. Humoli. Please proceed, Mr. Prosecutor.
Just a second of consultation, Your Honors, if I may.
Yeah, and could you also indicate, sorry, Mr. Prosecutor,
Yes.
could you indicate what your estimation for the rest of the examination is in terms of time?
Let me consult Your Honor for a second, also on this issue. Thank you, Your Honors, for your patience. We will continue with the examination of this witness, and I hope we'll finish during the next session, but I'm talking about today. Definitely today we'll be done with the direct examination of this witness.
But today before lunch? Or that is not clear? That's also an answer.
Your Honors, this is not clear. Everything depends on the course of the rest of this examination. But we will attempt to finish this as quickly as possible today.
Please proceed.
Mr. Humoli, I would like to come back to your testimony that you gave yesterday. We were discussing about the time when you were meeting your family in Zlash. And I don't believe that we establish several things. And let me start from the first one. How many times did you meet your family when you were in Zlash? How many times?
I don't know.
Was it once, twice, more than that, or you cannot say?
I told you that I met them once when we discussed the possibility of them leaving for Pristina.
So is this your answer, that you met them once?
Yes.
I would like to clarify still the issue that we were discussing yesterday. about the overlap between your stay in Slash and the stay of your family. And with the permission of the court, I would like to quote a very short passage from the SPO testimony, and I would like to ask the witness about his view on it.
Please proceed.
Thank you. For the record, I'm going to quote a passage from the SPO statement, ERN 100954, TR-ET, Part 3, page 5, lines from 11 to 23. Question by the prosecutor. Okay, because you said that you entered Slash on the 17th or 18th of April, and you said that your family moved to Pristina on the 17th or 18th. So did they go to Pristina on the same day when you entered or sometime later? Could you clarify the timelines, please? And your answer was, they left on the following days after my arrival. And you clarified on the following day. So did you say that to the SPO? Just answer my question. Is that what you said?
I said yesterday too that it happened one day. My family left one day before the offensive was launched against Slash. And it's difficult to remember in detail then if the offensive was launched on the 19th or the 20th. I'm not sure. If I went there on the 17th, the family left on the 18th, and the offensive was launched on the 19th. If it's a matter of one day, it's a matter of 3 days, everything that happened. I said yesterday, I'm saying today, don't focus on the dates, because when I was thinking, yesterday I said Zahir Payazidi was killed on the 31st of January 96, and when I thought about it again, I found out it was 97. So such details for me, that for you as a prosecutor are of interest, for me were of no interest, so that I could keep track of everything in my mind. I know that it left one day before the offensive, and that everything, I stayed there for 2-3 days, and that as a result of the preparation of for the Serb offensive, we went to the right-hand side of the Leskovce Road.
For this answer, Mr. Humoli, speaking about the same time, but I'm not going to talk about times, I'm going to ask you about something else. Yesterday you said that when you were visiting your family, when they were in Slash, you were spending time with them, talking to them in the yard. Is that so? Is that what you said?
Yes, yes.
With the permission of the court, I would like to put to the witness two statements of the two parts of the statement he gave to the SPO that deal exactly with the place where he was staying with his family.
Please proceed.
The first part, for the record, is on the following pages. 100954 TRET, part 3, page 7, lines from 5 to 8. And this is what you said to the prosecutor. Question. Okay, when you were, as you said, staying with your family in that place, were you staying mainly in the same building where your family was, or were you also going around that place? And your answer was, I stayed with my family in a building. So the question of the prosecutor was about the building. Your answer was about the building. And yesterday you said you met them only in the yard. So did you say that to the prosecutor? That it was a building where you met with them?
I don't understand the question. I mean, I answered the questions. And then when you think more about the past, I answered your question yesterday the way I remember it now. The important thing is that I met them in that place. It's probable, I think, that we met in the yard because it was not possible to meet elsewhere. The statement I gave yesterday is the final one for me.
Sure about the fact that you met them in Slash, but you're not clear where it was. Is that your answer? Let's have it clear once and for all.
I met them in the yard, in that compound.
In this case, I would like to read another part, as I mentioned, also dealing with exactly the same issue. We are talking about the same SPO statement, but the part is slightly different. With the permission of the court, I would like to read it. It's also about the same issue.
Please proceed.
So let's move to the statement again, SPO numbered 1009554TR-ET, but this time part 4, page 2, lines 2-4. The question is about the same thing, question of the prosecutor. Did you stay in that building after your family had left? And you said no, because during that time the Serbian offensive started, so we needed to go. So again, we have the exchange between the prosecutor and yourself about the building where you were meeting your family, not in the yard. So again, you're sure about the fact that you met your family in Slash. You're sure about it. However, you say it was in the yard. Today, but in the statement to the SPO, on 2 occasions at least, you said it was in the building.
I didn't say inside the building, but within the same space in the yard. From the translation I read that you gave me, either the translation was not right, but there are many inaccuracies in the translation, so they, in a way, distort my statement. If you read the statement I gave you, whoever knows Albanian and compares it to the statement that I gave to the lawyer, you won't believe it's the same person that has given the statement. So many inaccuracies are found in the translation. But I'm focusing on the essence of the problem and not on the details that you seem to be interested in.
And building in Albanian language are 2 different words, correct? And there should not be any problem with translating them properly, distinguishing between them, correct?
Correct.
With the permission of the court, I would like to read yet another part dealing exactly with the same thing, but this time it is the part of the statement that this witness gave to the defense.
Please proceed, defense counsel, Mr. Prosecutor, sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. So this time it's going to be the defense statement of Fatmir Humoli, number 2, number DSM 00119 00133, page number 10. In this part, you seem to be describing the inside of the building. Question by the defense counsel: in what kind of building did your wife and children stay? And you said, those were rooms. The houses were not inhabited before. Namely, all those houses were temporarily improvised to accommodate themselves. The question of the defense counsel: was there heating? Your answer was, there were wooden stoves. There was no electricity there. The question of the defense counsel: was there a kitchen or something so that they could eat? Your answer: they had these wooden kitcheners on which they would cook. So you gave the description of the interior of the building, saying there was no electricity, there was wooden stove, wooden kitchen, didn't you? So can we understand that actually you were inside of the place, the building where your family was staying in Slash?
Yes, I asked my wife the first time I met her, when I met her, what the conditions were like there, and she explained to me everything that you read out now. Because I wanted to know where they were living, in what conditions they were living, so she explained to me. And I explained to the lawyer the same things that my wife told me.
In replies to those questions, you are not saying to the defense counsel, oh, I was not there, but my wife told me about it. You say how the things were. And it sounds from this short paragraph that you actually were in the buildings, were you not?
I'm not sure, but the way the lawyer asked me, in the same way I asked my wife how they lived, in what circumstances. I told you yesterday, because there were other families accommodated there, I couldn't go and intrude into other places and upset these families.
So your memory today is that you saw them in the yard, correct? What is your memory today about this?
Yes. Yesterday and yesterday, as I told you.
Yesterday we discussed not only the building where your family was staying, but also other buildings. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you tell us what were the other buildings? What do you remember? Just in very brief fashion, just for the court to understand what you saw when you were there.
Old buildings that were not inhabited for years.
How many? Do you remember the number of those buildings?
I'm not certain, but more than 3, I would say, and some sheds with roofs where the animal fodder was kept. And in that place, a family was living.
We spoke yesterday about a certain building where the wounded were placed within that area. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Do you remember
Mr.
that?
Prosecutor,
Yes.
do you have a reference for that?
We discussed this issue in so many places that I cannot give it. I cannot quote it now, but I can find it after the break and provide it for the record.
That's what we have been doing up till now. So you don't have to give them all, but it's good to have one concrete reference.
Yes. Yesterday we spoke also about, as I said, about the wounded people, and you mentioned the question of wounded people being there, somewhere in the location. In your interview with the Defense Counsel, you spoke about the wounded people in your statement before the SPO. However, in the statement, in either of these two statements, you ever mentioned that you visited that building where the wounded were. So my question is, knowing where the wounded were, did you actually go there to that building?
Since the wounded were removed from that building, I met them because I helped my co-fighters to remove them. We encouraged the wounded, giving them hope of recoveries.
Shortly before their relocation from Slash, is that what you're saying?
Yes, because the KLA units were preparing to dislocate them from Slash. So I visited them and motivated them to be braver and more courageous.
Location to Slash? Because from what you are saying, it seems that this was the moment. I'm just trying to confirm for everybody that it is exactly the time when you visited the wounded.
I think. May I?
Defense Counsel, I see you're standing.
Yes.
Wait.
Yes.
Mr. Humoli, can you take off your headphones? Defense Counsel, please proceed.
I read line 19, and maybe counsel can read with me. Was it shortly before the relocation to Slash?
Of course, from Slash.
I think
yes.
so. Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Fonbonne. Thank you.
I just.
Thank you, Defense Counsel. Mr. Prosecutor, yesterday we have been discussing extensively the wounded people between pages 73 and 94. I would not like to go into a repetition of that.
Of course, Your Honor. My only issue was about not the presence of the wounded there, but the moment when the witness visited them.
Okay.
This is the issue I'm trying to establish with more precision.
Very well.
So again, my question.
The witness, does he have his headphones on? Okay.
So your testimony, just to clarify it once and for all, so your testimony is that you actually visited the wounded in connection with their relocation from Slash. Is that what you are saying?
Yes, when I visited my family, I also visited the wounded. And since we removed them, it was normal that I should meet them. But it's about 23 years that have passed for me to be able to remember such details. In this case, if I say answer only yes, no, maybe it wouldn't be enough explanatory.
Whether you're sure about the time when you visited the wounded or not. Was it shortly before the relocation of them from Slash? Was it early? Was it, what point was it? We are trying to establish that for sure, because it's an important element.
Yes. It's important, I'm telling you, to say that my family left one day before the offensive. That day I visited my family. That day the wounded were in that premise, and the organization for their removal was on the last day, that is their displacement. It happened a little time before the offensive was launched against Lush. So we left them a little bit early in the dawn when we took them to college.
In your statement to the prosecution and to the defense, again, you never mentioned visiting any wounded. Why didn't you say that at that time? And you are telling us about visiting the place where the wounded were only today. It's an important element.
Because you are asking me about that today. You asked then, you didn't ask me. Since you didn't ask me, I believe you didn't want to know about it.
On the contrary, today I quoted to you, I believe already, or maybe it was yesterday, the thing that, and I can quote it again, it was on page SPO statement, part 3, page 7, line 15 to 19. We discussed that yesterday. I asked you, as a prosecutor at that time, we, the prosecution, asked you about going around the compound, apart from the place where your family were staying. And your answer was clearly to the SPO, I didn't need to go around. I needed to stay with my family because I hadn't seen them for several months. We had this quote yesterday. So, in fact, during the prosecution SPO interview, the issue of the places that you visited were discussed. You never mentioned visiting the place where the wounded were staying. Do you confirm that you didn't during that SPO interview?
Mr. Prosecutor, he has already said that he did not talk about it.
Your Honors, it's 2 minutes to 11, so maybe the time is right for the break.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. I have noted, or have been informed that you have been using up till now 3 hours and 50 minutes. So that was your estimation for the examination of this witness. I would like to know a little bit more precise for our planning, which is important because we have today and tomorrow in principle, and we also have to give time and space for the defense. How much time you think you will be needing?
Your Honor, can I briefly consult on this issue, and I'll come back with an answer in a moment.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience, Your Honors. I would say we would need 1 more hour, not more than that, and if possible, we would kindly ask for the extension of the allotted time for the prosecution direct examination of this witness.
If you can keep it within the hour, in principle, that would be very much appreciated. And then what we will be doing after the break is that we will have this part of the examination, and maybe also the victims' counsel. And then afterwards, we will have a longer break than normal in order to give the defense the possibility to discuss with the client, with Mr. Mustafa, regarding the cross-examination. So, very well. Mr. Witness, we will have a break for half an hour. I will ask Madame Court Usher to accompany you out of the courtroom, and then we will see you back at 11:30.
Mute.
Okay.
Thank you, Madame Court Usher. We will resume in 30 minutes. The hearing is adjourned.
All right. All right.
Please be seated. Welcome back. Mr. Prosecutor, I will call appearances now. Can you confirm that you are in the same composition?
Yes, Your Honor, we are in the same composition.
Thank you. And the same goes for the victims' counsel's team?
Yes, Your Honor, same composition.
Thank you. Defense counsel and you are also in the same composition?
Same composition, and Mr. Mustafa is joining via video link.
Thank you very much. Very well. Madame Court Usher, could you please bring the witness in? Thank you. Mr. Prosecutor, I see you standing. You want to have the floor?
Yes, just very briefly, we have, during the break, we have assessed a required amount of time that we would need for the remainder of this examination, and I think we will finish it within 15 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prosecutor. Welcome back, Mr. Humoli.
Mr. Jetton.
Thank you.
Mr. Prosecutor, you have the floor to proceed with your examination.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Humoli, I would like to change the topic. Yesterday, we very briefly spoke about the unit called BIA. Do you remember that?
For?
Yes.
What Kosovo Liberation Army structure was BIA subordinated to?
Struktura e BIA-s ishte në vazhdim.
BIA structure was under the responsibility of the lab operational zone. Because the guerrilla structure was only attached to the lab operational zone in the entire Kosovo Liberation Army.
Within the lab operational zone command was BIA accountable to?
Llogari ka jep komandant
To the commander of the lab operational zone and to the chief of the operational zone of lab.
Who was the chief of the operational zone of lab? Could you remind us?
Nureddin Ibishi,
Nureddin Ibishi was the commander of the operational zone.
What was his exact position in the lab operational zone command? Could you tell us?
për kënë ke fjallën,
Who are you talking about?
Ibishi.
shefi operative,
He was the chief of operations.
Unit receiving orders from Rustem Mustafa, Nureddin Ibishi, both of them.
në situat BIA kanë qenë
BIA unit was under the command of Salih Mustafa, whereas Salih Mustafa took orders from the chief of staff or the command of the operational zone.
Either from Rustem Mustafa or from Nureddin Ibishi. Is that correct?
po struktura operative
Yes, the operational structure went through Nureddin Ibishi, but given that the guerrilla was more sensible, the commander of the lab operational zone had authority as well.
Did the BIA unit fall under the command of any brigade of the Kosovo Liberation Army?
në sitet e BIA-s kanë qenë
The BIA units were separate, were discrete units. And they were under the command of Salih Mustafa only.
Did any brigade have any authority over the BIA unit?
jo.
No.
Today, I believe you spoke about 3 brigades within the lab operational zone. You spoke about Brigade 151, 152, and 153. Is that correct?
Po,
Yes.
You told us that none of the brigades had any authority over BIA, but I'd like to be precise about one of them, 153. So also this brigade, 153, did not have any authority over BIA, did it?
jo.
No.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khumoli. We don't have any questions in this direct examination.
Thank you,
Mirë.
Mr. Prosecutor. Victims' Counsel, I will now give you the floor for questioning. How much time do you think that you will be needing?
Your Honor, actually, we don't have any questions for this witness.
Okay. Thank you very much. Then we will have, I will revise how we would be organizing this afternoon, because then it's the turn for the Defense Council. And we agreed on giving the Defense Council time for preparation before starting with the cross-examination. Defense Council, we will adjourn, and we will start at 2 o'clock. And then I will discuss with CMU and the translation unit how we will divide the time in the afternoon. And we have the possibility, of course, also to continue tomorrow for the cross-examination. Defense Counsel, is there something you would like to remark in this regard?
No, Your Honor, that's fine. We just will consult with the CMU regarding a Zoom meeting with our client.
Very well. Mr. Humoli, this was a very short part of the examination. We just came back from our break, but we will now again adjourn the hearing for a break, and then we will meet again at 2 o'clock. Is that clear for you?
The shortest.
It is clear.
I will ask Madame.
Thank you.
Madame Court Usher, could you please accompany the witness out of the courtroom? Thank you. Thank you, Madame Court Usher. Does the SPO wants to raise before we adjourn something, or is everything fine for the moment?
For the moment, no issues, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. And the Victims' Counsel?
No, thank you.
Thank you. And Defense Counsel?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay, very well. Then we adjourn the hearing till 2 o'clock.
All right. All right.
Please be seated. Welcome back to this afternoon sessions. I will first call appearances. Mr. Prosecutor, is the composition the same as this morning?
It is the same, Your Honor.
Thank you. Victims' Counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, we are the same composition right now. However, at 3 o'clock, Annie Poes will have to excuse herself from the courtroom, so it'll be only me from 3 o'clock.
Thank you. That is noted. And defense counsel, you are in the same composition with your
Yes,
team?
Your Honor, we are in the same composition.
Thank you. Very well. Madame Court Usher, could you usher the witness in, please? Welcome back, Mr. Humoli. We will.
Thank you.
We will continue with your testimony this afternoon. I want to short recapitulate what we have already informed you by email of that the schedule for this afternoon is from now till 3:15. We will have our first session, then we will have 15 minutes break, and then from 3:30 till 5 o'clock, we have a second session this afternoon. Very well, Defense Counsel, as per oral order given to you yesterday by the panel, I remind you that your cross-examination will be done entirely in public session, and you have the floor for your cross-examination. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Mr. Humoli, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yesterday, you said in your statement here in court, and I quote page 32 of the transcript of yesterday, line 3, but I will quote the entire portion of it. It is from line 1 until 5, from line 1 until 5, you said the following: the reason for us entering Pristina was that following the information we were provided with by the Pristine guerrilla that the army, that is the Yugoslav army, was distributing information so that the population would flee, would escape from the area, and would go in other neighboring countries. Do you recall that, sir?
This is the reason why we went to Pristina.
The question we have regarding this issue is the information that was provided to you, was that information regarding Albanian families who were being forced from their homes and had to be also be marching to the Pristina sports stadium?
Pristina is inhabited by Albanians over 90%. And that invitation was addressed only to Albanian families.
Is it correct that in that period of time that you were there, that you were aware that there were deportations going from Pristina to Macedonia?
This was the time when deportation of people from Pristina to Macedonia started. But the displacement of the population to Macedonia and Albania dated back earlier from other regions of Kosovo.
But just that deportation that took place from Pristina to Macedonia, and I mean after the NATO bombing, was that the time that you were in Pristina?
It's the time when we were expecting the operation for the displacement of population. After receiving this information by the guerrilla unit that this event was going to happen, the lab operation zone decided to enter the city with all the people who were familiar with the city with small weapons in order to prevent the Serb army from acting.
Is it correct that many thousands of Kosovars were deported from Pristina?
Over 60% of its population was deported from Pristina for Macedonia. Some of them passed through Gulag.
And do you know, can you tell us when that deportation, that large deportation actually occurred?
The deportation occurred on the 31st of March. That is the end of March. This is when deportation started. Because the police were concentrated on the highest points of the city and started to fire in the air just to scare the population. And having received this information from before that they had to leave, within a short period of time, the overwhelming majority of people came out in the streets.
And it was after these events, these deportations, that you returned to eventually La Pastiche. Is that correct?
Po.
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Humoli, to conclude this deportation that took place, was that at that moment that deportation took place, a deportation by the Serbian forces?
Can you repeat the question, please? I'm not clear.
Talking about, was that a deportation by the Serbs, this executed by the Serbs on the Albanian population?
Po.
Yes.
Next question that we would like to touch upon is the following. We would like to request to show, and I will give the ERN number, DSM number 00119 until 00133, and then that is, it should be attachment 2 of that.
Please proceed, Madam Court Officer.
It is at the very bottom. Yes. And could we rotate that, please? Yes, thank you very much. And maybe could we blow it up a little bit? Yes, I think so. Mr. Humoli, can you see the photo?
Po.
Yes.
Sure.
Po.
I can.
This location, is this the location where your family stayed?
I told you that I couldn't understand, I couldn't be clear about this picture taken from above. When you saw me from below, then I showed you that this is the place.
And the yard that you spoke about, is that the yard in between these buildings on these pictures?
Po.
Yes.
And is this the location, you spoke about the location where your family was? Is it in this very same location where the wounded people were treated and eventually evacuated from?
Po.
Yes.
Mr. Humoli, did anybody tell you if Mr. Mustafa ever has detained any people?
Nobody told me that Salih Mustafa had detained anyone.
Did Mr. Mustafa ever tell you that he had detained anybody?
Yo.
No.
Ever tell you that he had ordered the detention of people?
Yo.
No.
That he had mistreated people?
Yo.
No.
Did you ever hear from anybody else that during the war, in the period of April 1999, Mr. Mustafa had mistreated, detained, or beat anybody?
From the superiors and soldiers that I knew and met, I never heard such a thing.
You heard of your family while staying in the location where they were staying? Have they ever told you that on that same location they had noticed or heard or seen people being detained or maltreated?
No, neither my family told me anything like that.
Were at the location of this photograph, have you ever seen yourself that people were detained there?
Yo.
No.
Noticed if a particular building was guarded specifically?
Yo.
No.
On this particular location, approximately in the time that you were there, were there refugees or people seeking refuge?
Yes, there were.
Why your family stayed there?
Yes, certainly.
Was this place so safe?
All the houses in Slush were overcrowded with civilian population, and because of the shelling, no house was safe and guaranteed. But because they wanted to get shelter from the cold, and they settled in these houses of Slush.
You say they settled in these houses of Slash. You mean that these houses, as you are watching, were in Slash?
Yes, these houses are part of Slush neighborhood. But all the villages of Golak were, as I said, overcrowded with civilian population. It was not only Slush.
Have you ever heard, during the war or after the war, whether Mr. Mustafa had committed any particular crime?
Yo.
No.
And just a minute, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. Um, have you ever been informed by Mr. Mustafa regarding the killing of a family with the name Rama?
Familie Rammers Brown.
Rama family was killed in Obilic municipality after the beginning of the NATO air strikes. I heard it from Salih Mustafa and the unit that was part of Obilic. And Rama was part of the BIA guerrilla unit.
And when you were informed by Mr. Mustafa regarding this issue, was this before you reached Barileva with Mr. Mustafa, or was it after you had parted ways in Barileva, that you went to La Pastice and he remained in Barileva, or at least that's where you parted?
The killing and maltreatment of this family happened almost immediately after the NATO airstrike. And wanting to drive away the population from Obilic municipality exerted pressure on this family. The unit resisted, and after that resistance, they were killed. The remainder of the population left towards Pristina. I don't know exactly when I got this information from Salih Mustafa.
In your memory, was that after you had parted ways in Barileva, or was it?
No, I got this information before we received the information to remove the population after the leaflet spread by Serbia. I think this must be on 23rd and 24th of March, whereas the leaflets were distributed later. The information arrived at lab operational zone earlier. This was much before we went to Lubnica neighborhood after the 1st of April. So that happened earlier than the 1st of April.
Earlier, do you mean the killing of the Rama family? That happened earlier?
Oh.
Yes.
Do you know if Mr. Mustafa tried to go to that BI unit in Obilic?
The Obilic unit had its own superior, and in the circumstances it was impossible to go because the position of the Rama family was in a flat land, and nobody could approach them without being eliminated by the Serb forces. It was near the road, but during the day it was impossible to have access to it, for someone to go and help them.
Lastly, do you know a person by the name of Isuf Shalaku?
Oh.
Yes.
Met him in Barileva.
He's dead now, after the war. He died after the war. But he was one of the soldiers of the guerrilla in the Obilic area.
Do you know, or do you remember, if you have met him in Barileva when you arrived there?
Yusuf was one of from the part of the earliest guerrilla unit. We met momentarily or on other occasions, but I can't tell you for sure. But from Obilich municipality to come to Lach, the easiest route was through Burgoci and Marilev. Any withdrawal passed through this route of the forces, passed through Burgos, Barilev, to arrive in Mayats or elsewhere.
Excuse me, do I read Burovts or Burgots?
Burgovs.
Do you know if Salih Mustafa ever told you that he had arrested somebody? Or did Salih Mustafa ever tell you that he had arrested somebody?
The BIA guerrilla unit didn't have the mandate to detain, to arrest someone. It operated in the city, and its main duties were to be informed of the positions of the Serb forces, logistics, or to meet the needs of the military hospital in Botok. So they could operate only when their life was endangered. Otherwise, they didn't have the mission to be militarily engaged in Pristina.
And was the area of operations of the BIA in Pristina mainly?
Pristin, Obilich, and Fushkosov.
And if there would be anybody from the BIA in Zlaj, for what reason would they be there? Do you know that?
Every guerrilla unit soldier could find accommodation in any units of the KLS situated at the in the outskirts of Pristina, because they were always under constant stress and they needed to rest. So their duty when they went to different units, was to take a rest, not to act.
And did you see that with your own eyes while being in Zlaj, on that location of the photo?
The members of the guerrilla unit couldn't be identified by any operational zone, without the permission of Salih Mustafa. So the commander of the operational staff didn't have the right to ask from Salih Mustafa to inform him about the operational duties. So they couldn't be identified without any need to do that.
Defense counsel.
Yes.
You asked him if he could see with their own eyes while being in Slash on that location of the photo.
Yeah.
Did you get an answer to that question?
I think the answer was that it was, for the witness, not able to distinguish people.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
That's how I take it. Just want to have a consultation. Your Honor, we have at this point no further questions to Mr. Humoli.
And does that mean that this ends your cross-examination?
For this moment, yes, it does. At least we will use another opportunity. But for this moment, in consultation with our client, we will not have any further questions in cross-examination.
Thank you, Defense Counsel. Very well. Yes, Mr. Prosecutor, would you like to continue with a second round?
Yes, we will be happy. Your Honors, let me consult for a second, and then I'll come back to you with the answer.
Okay, we will wait for that if you want to continue with redirect examination.
Your Honor.
Yes,
Yes.
I want to, Defense Counsel, you will get the floor, but I want to have the prosecutor present as well.
Your Honors, very briefly, just maybe 2 or 3 questions, if I may, in relation to what Mr. Humoli said in his answers to the questions of the defense.
Mr. Prosecutor, you will be given the floor, but before that, I want to give the floor to the Defense Counsel, who indicated he wanted to raise a point. Mr. Defense Counsel, you have the floor.
Your Honor, if I may ask one concluding question to the witness, which I did not pose, and I wanted to do that with permission of the prosecution, of course.
I don't see any problem in that, of course. So you will get the floor, Defense Counsel, and then afterwards, Mr. Prosecutor will continue. Please proceed, Defense Counsel.
Mr. Humoli, we met on 2 occasions, on the 24th of March 2021 and the 25th of March 2021. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember the meeting, but I don't recall the dates.
I'll tell you that the meetings that we had, we took your statement at the time.
Well,
my question is,
yes.
Did you tell the truth?
I have taken the oath to tell the truth from the beginning.
Tell the truth here in court?
Yes, I did.
That was the question, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Defense Counsel. Mr. Prosecutor, you have the floor to ask some additional questions. Please proceed.
Your Honor, before I start, just for the sake of procedure, our understanding is that the defense counsel is putting to the witness all the cross-examining questions right now. That can be done in public session, and he can ask private sessions questions if he recalls the witness. Is that correct? Is our understanding correct?
The defense will also be put in the position to ask questions that are not be asked only in private. So your understanding was not completely correct, or maybe we have not been clear enough. But he will be put in the possibility to ask further questions.
Understood, Your Honor. Thank you very much for this clarification. I would like to ask you, Mr. Humoli, a few questions, and I would like to refer to your answer that you gave today to Mr. Van Bonnet. It's on page 50, line 14, where you are discussing the issue of deportation from Pristina. You told the defense counsel that the deportation from Pristina occurred on the 31st of March. Is that correct?
Yes.
These deportations that were taking place at that time, in fact, occurred on numerous days. I'm talking about Kosovo-wide. Is that also correct?
Before the deportation of citizens from Pristina started, there were deportations from other regions of Kosovo towards Macedonia and Albania. The population of Pristina was deported during this period.
Deportations, in
Your
fact,
Honor.
The movement of the displaced persons started already on the 28th of March, correct, if I recall what you said today?
The displacement of the rural part of the villages, like the village of Shkabe, that was in vicinity of the plant, the energy hydropower plant of Pristina, the coal plant of Pristina. So those people were displaced because of the Serbian police, and that was a time when massacres happened in the Rama family. So during this period of time, there were displacements of certain families for strategic interests of the Serb forces. So the families were not deported en masse, as was the case later on.
Oh, wait.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Mr. Prosecutor. I heard the voice of the defense counsel, and I saw him standing, but now I see he's sitting again. Do you still want the floor, defense counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, just to clarify, because...
Wait, please. I will ask the... excuse me.
Sure.
I will ask the witness to put off his headset. Could you take off your headset, Mr. Humoli? Thank you. Please proceed, defense counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. The question is not about whether there were deportations taking place. The question that I was speaking of were the deportation specifically in Pristina, which is, to anybody's knowledge, an historical fact. So I was speaking about the deportation of the people from Pristina.
Mr. Prosecutor, what is your reaction?
Yes, Your Honor, my reaction is that we are discussing about certain movements around the dates very relevant to this case, and that we would like to understand better where those movements of people were taking place. This is especially relevant in the context that it seems that the witness seems to orient himself around those movements. He mentioned yesterday and today also those movements of population to Macedonia, and then he said, because of those movements, I could more or less state the date or the dates where certain events were occurring, like his movements. That is why I would like to ask just 3 questions in order to better understand the timelines of those deportations. And this stems from the questions of the defense counsel and from the reply of this witness.
Okay. I see the defense counsel standing again.
Yes, Your
Please.
Honor.
Mhm.
The deportations that I was speaking of in the cross-examination was the deportation of the people from Pristina. I do not think that in re-examination then we go beyond the scope of that particular issue, because it is simply what that scope of the question was and to what the witness answered. So I do not think we have to go embark on movements of people anywhere in Kosovo, on all kinds of places, or wherever. Just stick to where the question in cross-examination was getting to, which was the deportation of the large group of people from Pristina.
Are you still want to react, Mr. Prosecutor?
We can also focus on Pristina if the defense counsel insists, because this is maybe it's sufficient for us to get answers on those movements.
Okay, but anyhow, I do think there is some relevance in it, and we are not strictly here in a kind of common law system. If there is a relevance in for the ascertainment of the truth, I will allow it. And in this case, if you have 3 questions on that point, you may ask them.
Yes, I'll try to stick only to those 3 questions. So, did you say, and do you confirm that the movements in Pristina that you spoke about today happened on the 30th of March 1999?
Yes, it is confirmed.
Movements of people migrating, internally displaced persons migrating towards or being deported towards Macedonia. Is that correct?
The part of Hani Ielezit, the part of Kaçanik that were in the border crossing point, that were close to the border, they were obliged to leave earlier. They went to Macedonia, and they also had family members there. However, the massive displacement, the most special one is the Pristina massive displacement, because it was well organized. Trains were engaged as well as buses, so that people were sent to Macedonia. So they were placed in the stadium of the city as well as in the railway station of Pristina. This is a different situation as compared to the other displacements which were ongoing. Before the NATO bombing started, after the massacre in Rechak, the population has constantly moved in the mountainous areas, in those parts where the Serbian technology could not reach easily. So these movements were happening in Drenica, in Dukajin, and everywhere else. However, when it comes to the organized displacement, the most organized and the better organized one was the displacement in Pristina.
Your Honors, I don't have any further question. Thank you.
Thank you. Victims' Counsel.
Your Honor, sorry, we don't have any further question for the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. And Defense Counsel, do you want a rejoinder?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, Mr. Homoli, you have been asked several questions by the prosecutor and the Victims' Counsel and the Defense Counsel, and it's now the turn of the panel to ask you some questions. It will allow us to gain some more clarity to what you have already stated in your testimony today and in your previous statements. And your answers will be valuable in helping the panel to better understand what has happened and the events that you have described. So let me see. We will continue.
I am ready for that.
We will continue till 3:15, and then we will have a break, and if needed, we will continue. Yes. I want to cite a document, and that is the document ERN 1954 TRET Part 1, page 14, lines 14 and 15. And you stated in that SPO statement, witness statement, that the structure of the KLA had the military police and the intelligence service. And my question to you is, was such a structure also in place in every brigade in the lab operational zone? That is to say, in Brigade 151, 152, and 153?
Lab operational zone had its intelligence service. Latif Gashi was the commander of the intelligence service. Bedritala was the deputy of that structure, whereas when it comes to the remainder of the structure, I don't know on how it was properly organized.
And did they have also a military police unit?
Lab operational zone also had a military police unit.
You were talking. Actually 153, but also 152 and 151. Did they have a military police unit and an intelligence service unit?
I have no idea how the military police has operated, because all the soldiers were wearing the same uniform. There was no distinction of the soldiers. The developments were rather dynamic, therefore I don't have accurate information about this one.
Was there, do you know if there was in the different brigades an intelligence officer working?
I do not know.
Okay. And let me see. So what you do know is that there was an intelligence service at the level of the lab operational zone. Yeah, that you do know.
Yes.
But not lower in the hierarchy.
I have no idea how it went further down.
Okay. I want to refer to your statement you gave to the defense, and that is DSM 00100, and then especially the pages finishing in 108. And there you were asked a question, you said something about the structure of the brigades. And then you indicated that there was a commander of the brigade, a deputy commander, a commander of the military police, an information service of the brigade. And then you continued that in organizational sense, there were battalions and each had smaller units. And you said then there was a chance to gather, if there was a chance to gather 3 battalions, the 3 battalions would form a brigade. Intelligence officers were appointed by the headquarters of the lab operational zone. Here, I understood yet that you indicated that every brigade apparently had an information service and there was a commander of the military police. Does that refresh your memory, or can you further explain to me why you say that you don't know anything about this?
From what I know, and this is something that I've told the prosecutor and the defense counsel, that it was the commander of the brigade, the deputy commander of the brigade, and there were as well people that were engaged with the civil defense. And that's what I know of having told both parties. Whereas when it comes to the intelligence service, I think that every soldier has given information as to what has happened and how things have happened. And the information of every soldier and every layperson has been sent up to the commander of the brigade. The way on how the information has been gathered from the commander up until the intelligence service, I don't know how that has been realized. I am sure that there have been no superiors in the intelligence service, because I've never heard that there have been superiors of the intelligence service in the brigade composition. But what I've said is that every citizen has gathered information and they have the possibility of getting that information to the soldier, and then the soldier has conveyed that information further afield. I don't have any other answer to that question.
Mr. Omoli, I have been quoting a part of your witness statement given to the defense about the structure of the brigades. And I've given you the possibility to comment on what you said before. If this is your clarification, I read it out to you. You said it yourself that there was an information service of the brigade. If this is what you want to answer, I take it.
That is my answer. What I told you is my answer. How the intelligence service operated, that I did not know. I could not have information about that. And it has been very difficult for other superiors to have access to this type of information. Now, when things are being translated from Albanian into English, I am not able to follow that. But when it comes to the intelligence service, I said that the responsibility of the intelligence service was to process the data that were delivered by the citizens. The way on how that operated, that's up to the intelligence service. All the information of the guerrilla was sent to Salih Mustafa. Then I don't know where Salih Mustafa has sent that information. I have no idea about that. About the commander and the deputy commander, it is crystal clear to me on who those persons were, whereas for other brigades, I don't know about that.
Trying to clarify this, I was trying to go through with you the structure of the brigade. And I have been citing to you what you told the defense counsel, and that there was, and you said in that statement, there was a commander, a deputy commander, a commander of the military police, and an information service of the brigade. Yeah, and I ask you, to clarify. No, wait, to clarify or.
Yes. I'm explaining it now.
Mr. Omoli, please wait before talking to me. Before I finish my sentence, because if not, the translators will talk to both of us that we are not letting them do a proper job. So, please, you have the floor.
About the operational structure of the brigades, I told you that I don't know on how they operated. I knew who the commander of the brigade was, but I didn't know about details of the structure, neither for the intelligence service nor for the military police. I don't know on how those structures were built from the commander of the zone, military police, and higher up in the hierarchy. This is something that I'm telling you again, and I don't know on how. I have told the lawyer otherwise. I don't know how I might have possibly given this answer to the lawyer.
Question was just directed at if there was at the brigade a unit occupying itself with information, with intelligence. That is my question. I was not asking you about how it operated. I only asked you if there was a unit of this kind.
I do not know.
And I try to refresh your memory with your own statement, and you have given an explanation, and that's good for now. Yes. In the same ERN number I stated before in part 1, page 28, lines 4 to 6, you stated, Mr. O'Malley, that the lab operational zone took a decision that every person who was arrested had to be taken to the prison in La Pastica. And my question is, the lab operational zone was quite extended. Were there special places where arrested persons would be detained pending their eventual transfer to La Pastica? Do you know about that?
No, I have no information about that, because there was only one center in La Pastica. On how they were transferred to La Pastica, I don't know. However, if it is of interest to explain the reason why there was only one center of detention there in La Pastica, the reason for that was that the Kosovo Liberation Army has been 100% volunteer. It was built on a volunteer basis. And there might be the case that volunteers had a wrong approach towards the individuals. The Serbian police has, in multiple occasions, compromised many people. And the staff of the operational zone knew that such actions were intentional by the Serbian police. Lab operational zone knew of some occasions of this nature, and they knew that these people were not guilty. Therefore, their transfer and sending to the center, they were sent there and they were released afterwards because of the lab operational zone, knowing that these people were compromised by the Serbians, because the Serb military forces tried to put people into conflict with one another because they wanted the people to lose trust in us. Although we've been occupied for 75 years, after the 90s, it has not been possible. I mean, before the 90s, it was not possible to establish a government of ourselves. But however, based on the tradition of Albanians.
Mr. O'Malley, please, you were giving me an explanation why there was one detention center, and I would like you to stick to the answer to that. And so we won't continue with this. I have another question for you with regards to your SPO witness statement with the same number I cited before, and that is part 2, page 4, lines 20 to 24 for the record. And you explained that you would go to Mramor most of the time on foot. Could you explain to the court why it was easier to go by foot in that surroundings?
For
The zones that were mountainous areas, and in certain circumstances, because of the climate, the only way was to reach them on foot. Most of the Mramur neighborhoods are situated in an elevated terrain, so to reach them, the only possibility was to walk, or when it was dark, we could also use the car.
And why would you go by car when it was dark and not during the day?
nuk po e kuptoj.
I don't understand the question.
It was dark, we could go by car. And my question is, why only when it was dark?
Unë as nuk përmend arsye.
I didn't say dark. I said when the climate was not suitable, it was impossible to use the cars, so we had to walk. And in mountainous areas, you cannot use the cars.
Okay, but I will take the, I will see what you say. You said on page 72, line 14, or when it was dark, we could also use the car. That's what you, what has been translated. Was it because of the Serbian forces that you would go by car during the night because it was too dangerous to do it during the day?
Po kjo është mvar prej
It depended on the circumstances and the pace of the Serb offensive. So, depending on the circumstances, we made the movements.
But I'm asking you specifically to explain further why you said that if it was dark, you would go by car.
ose bëhet
Either it's being wrongly translated, but I don't think I used the word dark. I said in climatic different, depending on the climate.
Here, I'm going to read the transcript to you, Mr. Humoli. Maybe I will formulate it in a different way. Would you say that to go to Marmor, the only way was to go by foot? You could not go there by car? I've understood that Marmor is a kind of big city, a relatively big city, or am I mistaken?
Marmori është
Mramor is the most inhabited village in Golak. It's a village. Slash is a neighborhood of Mramor.
pas fillimit të bombardimit
So, following NATO airstrikes, we were obliged to, in a way, change the way we moved compared to before the airstrikes.
Okay. My question to you is, was it possible to go to Myanmar by car?
kushte normale
In normal conditions, when there was no danger, you could use cars.
In that period, it's almost an open door. there was danger. Is that correct?
After NATO airstrikes and with the Serb forces undertaking sudden movements, every vehicle could be destroyed and you could not defend yourself. Whereas when you walked, the possibility was greater for the soldiers to defend themselves. So at this period, nobody wanted to put his life at risk to move from one village to another using vehicles.
And just for the clarification, for the record, could be destroyed by whom?
By the Serb forces.
If I summarize, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you say we would go by foot and not by car, depending on the circumstances, because in some occasions it could be dangerous because of the Serbs.
After 24th of March, it was always dangerous to move by car from one zone to another.
And I would like to go back to a remark you made with on Mramor being Slash being a neighborhood from Mramor. On the map, I saw that between Mramor and Slash is some distance. And maybe there's a kind of misunderstanding with regard to the word neighborhood. I would understand the word neighborhood as being a part of a town. So you have a part of a town and that you call neighborhoods. But I have seen on the map that Mramor and Slash are not situated next or attached to each other. So could you explain to the panel what you mean with being a neighborhood of Mramor, Slash being a neighborhood of Mramor?
In mountainous areas all over Kosovo, the villages are composed of neighborhoods, but neighborhoods are not adjacent to one another. They depend on the configuration of the terrain. The Slash neighborhood or other parts of Mramor, I don't recall them without looking at the map, as I said, depend on the configuration. Officially speaking, Slash is considered a part or neighborhood of Mramor. And the inhabitants of Slash, in their IDs, it's written inhabitants of Mramor. So Mramor is a village, whereas Slash is part of it. It's not a village, per se.
Thank you, Mr. Romoli, for clarifying that. For the record, I note that at 14:59, Madame Pues left the courtroom. Okay, let me see. I have another question for you, Mr. Romoli, and then we'll have a short break. Yes. You said already before that it's the same ERN number, part 2, page 18, lines 11 to 14. You stated that from the end of March to June 1999, there were movements from the Serbian forces due to the NATO bombardments. And did those movements from from the Serbian forces make it more difficult during that time in the lab operational zone to move around for the KLA soldiers? Mr. Homoli?
The main fightings waged by the lab operational zones and its greatest difficulties were after this period, because the Serb forces had to leave their everyday positions so that NATO couldn't strike on them. So their movements were towards the civilian population with the sole purpose of not being struck by NATO without striking the civilian population as well. So that was the tactics used by the military and the police forces, both in towns and in rural areas.
Yes. And about what period are you talking now?
After 24th of March, after the beginning of NATO airstrikes.
Do you recall when the Serb offensive took place in around Slash? So specifically when the Serb entered Slash?
They entered Slash on the 19th or 20th of April. I'm not certain about the date. But
I understand that it's a long time ago. And can you recall how many days, no, let me say it differently. Did they stay in Slash for a period?
yes, they stayed until dark fell. Then they left, started to leave Slash.
And do I understand you well, but please correct me, that they stayed one day?
Not one day. Within the day they left. They entered that day, and on that day they left.
Okay.
After setting fire to all the houses in Slash, they left. For this reason, the KLA units couldn't operate thinking that the Serbs would take position there and the KLA would attack them later. But the Serb forces left immediately, so there were no more fightings when the Serb forces withdrew from Slash.
At that time?
No. I was in Kachanul, Ketchakol, which is between Kolic and Ketchakol. After we removed the population that went to Kolic, we were situated in that part between the two villages, but not in Slash, because the Serb forces were there at that moment.
Okay, and you said you were in, let me see, Kalanac, and that's near Kolic. Do I understand that well? No, Ketchakol, you were in Kakanol. Do I understand that well?
Ketchakola is, these are villages, adjacent villages. I can't be accurate whether I was in Kolic, Ketchakol, but they were all mountainous areas near these positions.
Okay. And so on the 19th or the 20th, you don't remember the exact date of the Serbian offensive in Slash. As soon as the Serbs had left, you returned to Slash. Is that right?
Yes, as soon as the Serb forces left Slash, I don't know how much time passed, they left at night. On the next day, we went to Slash with a Grążemajli.
Okay. Yes, that's what you said in your statement to the defense on the document ending with 128, so DSM 00119-128. Okay, thank you for that. When you went to Slash, when you went back to Slash, how many soldiers of the KLA were there still? Can you remember that?
I don't know how many, but I met Fatmir Sopi and some other inhabitants of Slash, because most of the population of Slash knew the terrain very well, and they managed to find shelter nearby. They didn't leave Slash completely. So Fatmir and his unit stayed most of the time in the Slash area, defending their family, but because they were very familiar with the terrain.
Which unit do you mean?
Fatmir was the commander of civilian defense. Sorry, there is overlapping. I don't know what unit that was, whether they were soldiers, but I know they were soldiers led by Fatmir Sopi.
And was it Brigade 153?
Soldiers of Brigade 153. Sodri Veseli, who was deputy commander, went to Kolich. Fatmir, Adem Shehu, I don't know for sure where they were.
Okay. And I have a look at the time. I still have some questions, so we agreed on having a break at this moment in time. So, Mr. Humali, I will ask Madame Court-Usher to usher you out. We will have a 15 minutes break, and then we will continue with some other questions, which will be not a lot, and then we will end the hearing.
For as long as you want me to be here.
Thank you, Madame Court-Usher. We will adjourn the hearing for 15 minutes, and that means that we will restart at 5 minutes past 4:30. The hearing is adjourned.
All right. All right.
Please be seated. Madam Presiding Judge, we lost connection, so just give us a minute to fix it.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you have
Thank
to be
you.
unmuted.
I said, welcome back. Sorry for that. Welcome back. And I need to call appearances, and I assume that we are in the same composition when it comes to all the teams. Mr. Prosecutor?
Yes, indeed.
Very well. Victims Counsel?
Same composition, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense Counsel?
Defense the same, Your Honor.
Thank you. I see that Mr. Mustafa is present via video link. It took a while. Yes, I will have the witness usher in. Madame Court Usher, could you bring the witness in, please? Welcome back, Mr. Humali.
Mr. Zetum.
Thank you.
Mr. Humali, after the slash offensive finished, the SERP offensive finished in Slash, when you came back, did you find there soldiers from Brigade 153 and the BIA?
I met soldiers of 153 Brigade that were with Fatmir Sopi there.
Okay. And from the BIA?
I didn't meet anyone from them then.
And did you meet Mr. Mustafa?
You?
No. He remained in college.
Thank you, Mr. Humali. We have concluded your testimony, and I would like to thank you for the efforts you put in giving your testimony. It will help us in our effort to ascertain what happened. So thank you on behalf of the panel. I wish you a safe journey home. And I remind you that you shall not discuss your testimony before the Kosovo Specialist Chambers with anyone. You will be ushered out by Madame Court Usher. Thank you again.
Thank you. I wish you success, and I wish you quick recovery.
Thank you. Thank you, Madame Court Usher. Yes, let me see. Is there anything the SPO would like to raise at this moment in time?
Your Honor, the only thing I would like to raise is that I believe I owe Your Honors some quotes from this morning. So on page 36, I was asking some questions to the witness about the place where the wounded were held, and I was making reference to the following parts of yesterday's testimony.
Mm-hmm.
Page 91, lines from 12 to 20. It continued to page 92, lines 14 to 25. Then page 93, lines from 1 to 25. And it ended on page 94, line 1 to 23rd of the provisional transcript.
Thank you.
No other issues, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Victims' Counsel, is there anything you would like to raise?
No, not at this point, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Defense Counsel, would you like to raise anything?
No, Your Honor, we have nothing to raise.
Very well. Before concluding today's hearing, the panel would like to recall to the parties and the Victims' Counsel that this was the last SPO witness. Therefore, the SPO can now proceed to close its case pursuant to Rule 129 of the rules. The panel further wishes to remind the parties and the Victims' Counsel of the deadlines set in paragraph 21A till G of the second decision on the conduct of proceedings. Moreover, the panel recalls that it has decided to convene a defense preparation conference on the 7th of, jointly with a victim status conference on the 17th of February 2022, starting at 9:30 in the morning, and with a reserved day for the 18th of February, also starting at 9:30 in the morning. And lastly, the panel would like to remind the defense to file its updated and final list of exhibits and list of witnesses, and to upload on legal workflow everything that is missing from from previously disclosed material. And should there be any questions in this regard on technical issues, you can refer to CMU. They can be of assistance. And this should be done sufficiently in advance of the 11th of February of this year.
Yes, Your Honor, if I may, regarding this issue,
Yes.
we will, and we also will liaise with the SPO. For the Victims' Counsel, I want to say that they have not received it at the time when we have filed our statements, due to the fact that at that early stage the Victims' Counsel was actually not represented. So therefore we will re-release all the documents once again in order to make sure that all the parties are on the same page again, and that that there is nothing missing in this perspective. So it's maybe a double, but we will just want to make sure that there will be nothing missing at that moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Defense Counsel. If the parties and the Victims' Counsel don't have anything to raise, we will resume on Thursday, 7th of February 2022 at 9:30. And I thank the parties, the Victims' Counsel, for their attendance and also their cooperation in this exceptional setting. And I also wish to thank the security, the stenographer, the audio visual booth, and the interpreters for their assistance today. The hearing is adjourned.
All rise.